So you're telling me there's now 3 Dazzes? Me, Baby Dazz, and now you?
Yes, I'm Princess Dazz.
Hey, Dazz. I don't trust this girl. Something seems up.
Yeah, something doesn't feel right to me.
Maybe we just need to look at this from a new angle.
And a new angle certainly seems to be what Nintendo is currently experimenting with. Towards the end of March, they announced their 4th Labo Toy-Con set to be all about VR. And admittedly, it looks pretty unique, not just following the usual tropes, but seeming to take quite a few new approaches to the concept. Not to mention adding these Toy-Con designs that no other company would have thought of. I mean, a pedal for jumping into the air and wafting air at yourself? Seriously? But after seeing that, I kinda settled it down as being more gimmicky minigames for Nintendo Labo. That was until 1 week later where they revealed cross-functionality with Super Mario Odyssey and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And though the uses of VR there are pretty bland if you ask me, here's a list of ideas I could see Nintendo's VR working with for many of their other games. I'll also be connecting them to how they could use each Toy-Con design too, since this isn't all just some first-person simulator list. Maybe some of these games could really use a cardboard elephant on your face. So here are 18 possible games planted into 10 slots of different VR archetypes that Nintendo Labo may be utilized with in the future. Here are the top 10 VR Nintendo games we want to see. Our first VR archetype is one I like to call the interactive gallery. This is where you'd often see VR artwork being created. While we could make some Nintendo-y art like shown off in the Toy-Con trailer, I feel being able to stand in a virtual room and observe something is applicable to more than just art. Introducing a new Pokemon spin-off game, or perhaps an extra extension to the Pokemon apps, a Pokemon petting mode. We've already seen this idea pop up in Pokemon X and Y with Pokemon Ami, as well as Pokemon Refresh in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Imagine being able to stop in the middle of Pokemon Shield, whip on your elephant headset, and then physically stand in front of your own virtual Donphan. Using the Labo trunk, you could inspect it for dirt, feed it food, or simply pet along it. Perhaps there's even hidden sparkles you have to find on their body to pick up a secret item they've picked up in the game. As a standalone game, I struggle to see much coming out of it beyond another Nintendo-style game or something, but as an extra viewing option in mainline Pokemon games, sounds pretty investing. Being able to kneel down and boop your Soggle on the nose? What an amazing connection that could produce. Moving on, we're going to take more of a direct approach from what we've seen. Both Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild fall into what I'd just call the new angle archetype. It's just a new, somewhat fixed perspective. And though I'm unsure how good that would be for these games, something a bit more fitting could be The Legend of Zelda, but 2D this time. Imagine looking down on your toy like Link's Awakening remake, seeing it literally moving around like a little toy. Or even more fittingly, how about a game where you don't really adventure that much? Rather than amputating the full game and just taking a section for the VR experience, chuck in this new angle to a Mario sports game. You only have to look a little to the left and to the right and you've covered the whole grounds of the game. Imagine Mario strikers charged, chaotically zapping around right in front of you. You could even have those mini first-person moments on the Mega Strike moments. And for a more casual experience, why not get a fresh view on the land of Animal Crossing? First person may be a bit jarring, especially with how the world just sort of rolls away, but a better, more fixed angle on Villager could be a quite nice thing to settle onto. This trope to me is probably the most boring form of VR use imaginable, but it could still have its place in some games. Next up, positional motion controls. This might require an extra set of Joy-Cons, but I feel like Nintendo wouldn't have any problem selling more of those. But with those goggles over the player, there's now an extra streamlined tracking system following their head. Now just add 2 more Joy-Cons for their hands and the game could accurately follow your body position. It could be great for, say, yoga. Maybe we'll get a sequel to Wii Fit with Switch Fit, or similarly we'll get a series of tasks that use body positions. Maybe there's a series of walls coming towards you with body-shaped holes and you must mimic the pose to get through the wall. Perhaps there could be some hand-eye coordination games involved to slowly improve your reflexes, like a physical version of brain training. improving your body rather than your mind. Or heck, this kind of technology could even bring up a new social game that tracks your arms and head. Though I don't think Nintendo really wants to dabble into VR chat too much, but at least it's an idea. Okay, now for slot 7, we've got games that utilize VR technology for the sake of immersion. This is pretty much your standard VR trope. It's often first person just to make a spectacle of looking around and interacting with the game world. And what would be the best game to take advantage of this immersion? Well, it's gotta be Pikmin. Whether it be an amped up Pikmin 3 port or the all new Pikmin 4, you can bet it would be astonishing to look up onto the giant world of PNF 404 as it towers over you. Though I've talked about Pikmin VR multiple times in the last few weeks on this channel, so I won't dribble over it for too long. But just think, every enemy is gigantic, every angle could be like a Copad picture, collectibles would seem like impossible crazy findings, and their giant size perfect for another unique interactive gallery, which would also work quite nicely with a new vamped up HD Piclopedia, and the Pikmin would seem so much closer to you emotionally. Whether that's a good thing or not. My god, just give it to me already, please. I'm starving over here. Following through with these standard VR tropes, first-person shooters. It's simple VR, very fun, and Nintendo already has the Blaster Toy-Con for that exact occasion. So, what games could fit into this simple design? Well, most notably, Metroid. Though Metroid Prime 4 is being restarted, there's always that lingering idea of a Metroid Prime Trilogy HD coming soon. We've already had a Wii motion controls upgrade, so up next is first-person VR. You could literally walk through the creepy atmosphere of Samus's expeditions and take on the horrid and grotesque creatures up front. And for something a tad faster, what about the cartoony, colourful world of Splatoon? Turn that third-person view into first, and you've got a frantic, intimate race to dominate the battlefield. And though I could see this only really being used for the single-player experience, wouldn't it be awesome to tackle online mode with this functionality? Perhaps it may be too fast and sickly for some people. So why not meet in the middle for clearly the most anticipated Legend of Zelda sequel of all time, Link's Crossbow Training 2? This game was all about motion controls, a crossbow, and a lot of targets, so why not bring it back, this time in VR too? It's goofy, but I really enjoyed it as a kid. Now just throw in slingshots, bow and arrows, stasis, boomerangs, fire rods, claw shots, and multiple different art styles from all of the different games, and put that all together and you've got a well-rounded, weird little fun side project. That's actually more in-depth than I thought it would be. That could work. Give it to me, Nintendo.
Listen, Dazz, I don't trust that princess one bit.
What do you mean? She's barely done anything.
Yeah, but doesn't she seem a bit sketchy to you? I mean, you found her in the middle of nowhere after a text message, and she didn't even seem to be in danger.
Yeah, I don't want her sticking around with us.
Plus, she seems a bit off. I think she's problematic.
Look, guys, calm down. We barely know this girl yet. Maybe she's okay. She's not doing any harm.
But Dazz, you can't even stand in the same shot together.
Not yet. I'm working on it. But if I say she's staying, then she's staying, okay? If you're that concerned, then we'll just go talk to her.
So we've already covered the first-person shooter trope, but this next one is very much an extension of that, being the flying first-person shooter trope. Think Iron Man VR, except it looks good and people actually want it. This might sound like a bad start for pitching it, but imagine Kid Icarus, flying through the white cloud skies, thoughtless on what direction you're flying in, and just focusing on attacking the underworld army as they fly towards you. Maybe it could even be a fully expansive story, including all sorts of twists, like having to take on the forces of nature before partnering with them to take down Medusa or Hades. Make the entire game the up-in-the-air sequences and you could have a truly awesome experience flying like an angel. Or take a minor step back and settle into the cockpit of an R-Wing flying directly up into space or through the skies, looking around through the windows to see what's up. Star Fox has had a bit of an iffy modern approach, but perhaps this idea could work well. Or maybe it'll just be another Iron Man VR with all the control complications of Star Fox Zero. Perhaps it's just too gimmicky, and if it's really that bad, We can always revert back to those tower defense games, because then we'd know for certain that it'd crash and burn. But this is Nintendo, remember? And Nintendo is not all about action and fighting, so a new potential VR archetype could be the perspective puzzles trope. Have a laid-back casual experience with Captain Toad's treasure tracker. Everything functions the same, but you'll need to look around Toad's cubey world to see what secrets lie just around the corner. Or similarly, we could get a mini-sequel to Super Mario 3D Land with its clear perspective tricks, utilizing a full 3D room perspective rather than the 3D functionality of the 3DS. It's a simple idea, but could be room for a lot of potential. This could spout a whole new Captain Toad game, with puzzles created specifically for this new angle on the game. Or it could just port some puzzles from before. Regardless, VR tech could certainly work quite nicely here if done well. And if all else fails, just bring back that Blaster Toy-Con and into the minecart sections. It's simple and easy, but we'd still enjoy it anyway. Alright, top 3. Here's where the biggest slot of all time comes on in. Gimmicky mini-games. That's pretty much the description of the Labo VR game anyway, but where else can you find functionality for the wind pedal, zooming camera, and freaking bird face? Well, if you take a game that's all about those weird mini-games and put them all in one place, you've got some interesting new control options to play with. Think Super Mario Party, opening up an extra mode or several bonus mini-games, each utilizing the different Toy-Cons. Or maybe create a direct sequel to WarioWare Smooth Moves and update it from making intense romantic monologues of different Wii mode controls and start turning them into other Labo setups instead.
The elephant. Wink a form baton forward, with the end lightly touching your nose, just as the mighty elephant uses its trunk to gorge on peanuts. So too will your new nose sustain you.
We could go even one step further and combine everything together with the much-awaited, Nintendo Land 2. New attractions and new options. Get your first-person VR Zelda game, your shooting blaster Metroid battle game, and your pedaling F-Zero race, all in one place. And in the main hub, just stand at the top of the tower and overlook as all those online Miis wander around the park. Number 2 brings us the opportunity to revive a dead but beloved series, Punch-Out! Similar to the positional motion tracking trope, with additional body tracking, we can now stand directly in front of Glass Joe, dodging to the side with our physical body, or at least our head, and perfectly timing those crazy fighting cues. Add in physical punching motions too, and you'll feel like you're a part of that cartoony boxing ring in a way unlike anything you've ever experienced before. You wouldn't even need to change the camera angle. I kind of feel keeping it in third person just behind Little Mac will still work wonderfully, as you can see how your motions make you practically dodge your rivals. And if that's not a good enough idea, maybe it'll bring us the new Wii Sports with Switch Sports instead. If we can't have Mike Tyson, then I guess it'll just have to be Champion Matt. Hashtag bring Champion Matt to HD. Because that's what the fans really want. Yeah. But of course, if I put anything else at number 1, I would be objectively wrong. It's one of the most highly anticipated spin-offs, and we literally already have the Labo design for a camera with zooming functionality. Of course I'm talking about Pokemon Snap. I've labeled it as the photo shoot archetype, but really, Pokemon Snap is all you need to call it. Much like the trailer has the player sitting in a 3D room, put that room on a rail system with a little carriage going through a created realm, and give us the next semi-sequel to Pokemon Go. Mostly Pokemon Snap though. Take the very best pictures you can, add in a few extra buttons for throwing apples or otherwise, and give us all the generations of Pokemon roaming around in glorious HD. And with such a simple game concept, can you imagine all the DLC and expansion opportunities? Adding extra levels would be simple. Having generation updates and other items could all work well. Levels could take place in old iconic regions, references to the anime, odd spin-off Pokemon games, or entirely original works. It could even have cross-functionality with mainline games, giving you an option to release your boxed Pokemon into one of these rooms to see and take pictures of them, or just put the whole game concept into another one of those apps in the next mainline Pokemon game, right next to the new Pokemon petting app or something. Whatever they choose to do, with camera in hand and Pokemon in sight, there are a million possibilities for Nintendo and the player to explore with and enjoy. Let's just hope they're on the same page as us.
Hey, Princess Dazz, I'm one of you guys now. I like what you got going on here, so I'm partnering with you now. Okay. Right.
Now that Nintendo has not only started with playing VR but also integrated it with some of their mainline IPs, there's a lot of directions they could take their games, and I, for one, am very excited to see what they come up with. I don't even need to go into details about how some of the game controls could work. I'll leave that up to the devs themselves. Though I'd certainly be interested to see if they have any more combinations like that bird and pedal one. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Unless a Nintendo Direct pops up while this video is being created. Check out my Twitch page, Dazz Videos, to see my reaction to that if it does pop up. Otherwise, if you like my stuff, support me on Patreon, that's also Dazz Videos for all sorts of behind the scenes stuff, and follow me on Twitter. Dazz Videos as well. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe, pester me if you want to hear me talk about specific VR game control ideas or any other video you want to see. Otherwise, my name's been Dazz, you didn't really care, and I'll see you in a bit.